Hello beautiful beings, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about how I manifested my specific person back the second time. So actually did a search on YouTube, and there is a lot of how I manifested my specific person back videos, but not a lot of them when you manifest them the second time. I don't know if that's because they just don't want to let people know that they have to go through the process again, or maybe it doesn't happen as often for them. But this is my story. You guys know I come from a trauma background, so I truly believe that people that have had to overcome severe trauma have to go about manifesting a slightly different way. Like, you have to be more consistent. So here is my story. Um, and actually, I think I hope that this lets you know that you can manifest a specific person multiple times. If it happens to people like me, happens to you, you can do it multiple times. It doesn't matter. So I was with my person after I manifested him back the first time for like 3 years. It was going really well, and I started to work on manifesting different things as I should. Um, Throughout those 3 years, I left my job. Well, I was laid off from my job. Um, I manifested a new job. I made a video about that. And then I manifested my apartment, the one that I'm in now. And I don't know if I made a video about how I manifested my apartment yet. I can't remember. Sometimes I'm a little ditzy and I forget stuff. But I had manifested a bunch of stuff. And I remember that when I moved into the new apartment, it was the first time that I was technically living by myself, because I lived with my mom and my father in our old apartment. But as you guys know, my father passed away. He had Alzheimer's, and that was very painful for us. There was a lot of pain in that apartment. I think the saddest years of my life were spent in that apartment. A lot of my trauma, not from childhood, but the things that you kind of go through with specific people and stuff like that, a lot of it happened there. A lot of emotional abuse from like a specific person that I had many years ago, all of that was in that apartment. So this was my first time kind of moving by myself, and I was in a completely different borough. From the Bronx, I moved to Westchester County. If you're from New York, you know that's like night and day. It's completely different. And I was still in the adjustment period when COVID hit. So, it was already a stressful time for me, the moving situation, because there was a lot of stuff with my mom. I was moving and leaving her in the apartment. So a lot of stuff, a lot of negative stuff was brought to the surface. And there was a lot of, like anger from myself, a lot of, trying to figure things out. It was very stressful. It was very frustrating. And then once things are finally starting to settle down, COVID hits. So, imagine that basically the only support system that I have at this moment, that is able to come visit me often would be my specific person. So, it was a very scary situation. Everyone was scared. We didn't know what was happening. I started working from home before anyone else in my company did. So I was home alone. And then when the quarantine hit, things became worse for me emotionally. I was already, for the past, to be honest, for the past months, maybe the last 4 or 5 months, I hadn't been as consistent in my nightly routine, in my affirmations. Things were going so well in the relationship that I had just let myself go emotionally. Um, and then when I would feel some type of way, I would try to really, quickly fix it with Ho'oponopono instead of just being consistent and being responsible for my own state of being, for my own mental health, my own emotional state. So my person was extremely supportive throughout everything that was happening, but he started to notice that I was slightly going down a dark hole. And then when COVID hit, when the quarantine hit, because when COVID hit, he was still coming over. And then when the quarantine happened, that he couldn't come over anymore as often because, there was a legit danger out there. And subconsciously, I couldn't understand that we needed to be responsible for ourselves. And in this point in time, he had to be in his house and I had to be in mine. So my fear of abandonment flared up, which let me know that I hadn't been consistent with the work that I was doing. And I never fully got to the root of the problem. I was just consistently covering it up, covering it up, covering it up. And when the quarantine hit, everything blew up in my face. I was extremely anxious, stressed out. I was constantly in the mindset that I was never going to see him again. Now, did that make sense? No, it didn't make sense. We've been together for years and we had a strong connection. So did it make sense that I wasn't going to see him again? No. But that is what happens when you have a specific trauma. It's not conscious. You feel these things even though there's no real justification about why you're feeling this type of way. It wasn't a conscious response. Anybody could have told me, of course you're going to see him again. But my deeply rooted trauma about fear of abandonment was not understanding that. So what did I do? I put on tons of pressure, tons of pressure, tons of pressure. I became very dissatisfied with where things were going. I just went down that route. And right as the quarantine was lifted, that I thought things were going to go back to normal, the break happened. And when the break happened, I felt like a failure because I had manifested him the first time and I should have been, I thought in my head, I should have been set. I should have known better. I should have known that I needed to continue being consistent with my internal work so that all of my baggage didn't fall on his shoulders, because it is not his responsibility to fix the way that I feel. And in a manifesting aspect, what was I doing by having all of those negative emotions and all this? I was pushing him away. And it took months and months and months for it to finally surface. And I think that the reason why it took so long, it was because I had done so much work previously. So when you start to work on your self-concept and your self-love, let's say you start today, you know, you might fall back down tomorrow. The more that you do self-love, the more you start to level out, right? So I was very leveled out until a certain extent, and then when I stopped doing the work for months and months and months, it took that long to catch up to me. So of course I was, I was distraught. I felt like a failure. I started to become extremely obsessed. I know that that is something that I have been working on for years, and I know a lot of you guys have a slight obsessive behaviors, and I think that also has to do with childhood stuff. So I became very obsessed, but I wanted to do things right this time around. I reached out to, back then, to several coaches, besides my usual that it was an yes, because I wanted to see, in their channel, they get everything in days, and all you have to do is, all you have to do is affirm, and all you have to do is this. And I reached out to two coaches. I reached out to Kim and I reached out to Sammy. And honestly, guys, I feel like all of this work works, and all of the coaches have people that their work works for them. But I felt like for me, I had to find a middle ground. I had to find what worked for me. And I couldn't do all of what Sammy was telling me because it wasn't working the way that it was working for the rest of her people. And that was very frustrating to me. That made me feel like I was doing something wrong, because when I reached out, that was at the beginning of her journey. And I feel like self-concept wasn't as talked about back then by her group. And just the vibe of the whole environment wasn't my thing. I reached out to Kim. She had a slightly similar background than I did, so I felt that I found missing pieces. So I was trying to put all of the teachings together, right? Kim, and yes, Sammy. Put them all together and still come up with a way that it worked for me. Because I knew what I was dealing with. Nobody knew what I was dealing with but myself. Nobody knew the trauma. I could speak about my trauma 24/7, but no one is going to be able to feel it and understand it the way that I felt it, because it happened to me. And, that's one of the reasons why I even decided to make this channel, because I feel like trauma is not talked enough about in the manifesting community. And, I feel like it's brushed off by a lot of people. And it just makes us folks frustrated. And sometimes it makes us seem like, things are not going to work out. Because, believe it or not, trauma changes your brain chemistry. So, I also believe in being gentle with the teachings that I'm giving, understanding that people go through a lot of dark shit. So back to the story. I was very frustrated. Her stuff wasn't working. This was okay. The other one was okay. So I just decided I was doing, I think at the beginning, like 3,000 affirmations a day. And I felt like in part it would work a little bit, but then I would get like these massive anxiety attacks. I feel like at the beginning, I affirmed, and it created a response. So I affirmed, and then he reached out to me one day, through Instagram, whatever. So that was already like first signs. But my anxiety was kicking my ass. My nervousness was kicking my ass. My feeling of not seeing him again, which didn't make sense, but we know it's from the trauma, kept on kicking my ass. I would break into like a huge anxiety crying fit. So what did I do? I researched and I found EFT tapping. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to drop all of this shit for now. I'm going to drop all of it. And I'm going to just focus, even if it's just for a few days, on getting this fucking shit out, on getting these negative emotions out of my body, because I can't even breathe right. So I found the EFT tapping. You guys know I have several videos on it. There is a reason why I have them, because they work. And I started tapping away. I will add to my channel a playlist of videos from other people that have made a difference for me. I would do that because I understand that you get your message from everyone, okay? I found these tapping videos regarding trauma and regarding fear of abandonment. And I remember I did both of them every night for like 4 days. And every night I would burst into tears, and it was followed by this relief, this release of energy. And then instead of doing 50,000 affirmations, I picked one and I turned it into an ask-formation or affirmation, because I understood that I had too much resistance. So I went about one affirmation, and I think it's like, why am I married to my specific person, or something like that. And then I started tapping, self-love tapping every day. And then I would tap for 3 minutes on I am wanted, because fear of abandonment makes you feel like you're not wanted. So I would start tapping I am wanted just to calm my nervous system down. After doing EFT tapping on self-love and I am wanted for a few days, my person came around. He came around, and I understood that I had to feel better. I had to feel better first for things to be able to shift in your 3D. I was the key. If I didn't fully understand that the first time around, I fully understood this time around. I was the key. You are the key. As soon as I started laughing, because there were some EFT tapping videos that would make you laugh. As soon as I started laughing and feeling content, things turned around in days. And listen, consistency is a process. There are days where I still don't do anything, and I have to remind myself, wait a minute, you can't let yourself go. Not because of your speed, but because my life in general depends on my emotional state. And I know that the better that I feel, and the more that I'm able to overcome these things, the more things I can manifest, the better my life will become, period. I don't have those anxiety attacks anymore. you know, and if I do, I have them once in a blue moon, and usually I could trace it back to just me not being consistent for the previous week. My specific person since then has been around consistently. We're back better than ever because now the relationship is more organic, is more sincere. Because I feel like this time around, I have really made it my business to put in the work in overcoming these limiting beliefs and overcoming this trauma. And I feel like that is the journey. I'm hoping I don't have to manifest them back the third time. But I am so grateful to him. It's a him, as you guys know that, but I am extremely grateful to him because I fully acknowledge that he has pushed me to become a better person. And I feel like you need to be grateful for your person because in one way or another, your person has been the catalyst to your change. Okay? One thing I wanted to address before I let you guys go, because I know this is a slightly longer video. I have been seeing a few coaches saying you don't need to reprogram your mind. You don't need to reprogram your mind. You need to reprogram your mind. Guys, when you create a new story and you have to stick to your new story and they tell you to persist, it's the same thing. It's just that some people use the word reprogram and other people just use other terminology. But it is the same thing. You are selecting a new reality. And for you to select a new reality, you have to consistently inhabit that new reality until it becomes normal to you. Same damn thing. Same thing. And we have spoken about this before. You don't need to have self-love. You don't need to reprogram to manifest. We know that. But the reason why we're doing it is because we want our manifestations to stay. Because the subconscious mind is a habitual mind. So when you first get your manifestation, you're going to be consciously aware of what you're doing 24/7. And that's going to slightly keep your manifestation here. But as soon as you go unconscious, you lose it because you're back to your old patterns. So damn same thing. I hope this video was valuable to you. As always, my information is in the description box below. If you need help with coaching, if you need just a supportive hand to guide you through the pain, to guide you through the trauma, listen, I've been there, done that. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of coaches on YouTube, and I feel like they're all good, but everyone has an audience. And I focus on my people that have trauma because I know how that shit feels, and it's fucked. I hope my video doesn't get messed up because of me cursing, but been there, done that. I'm here for you. I love you. You got this. If you need my help, reach out. If not, just follow my steps, follow what I do, and you will do just fine. And until next time, bye.